Live, 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 live. We are live, guys and gals, boys and girls, wherever you may be. Also, broadcasting live on the Save Our Sites conference LinkedIn website. Going on YouTube tomorrow. Going on the podcast tomorrow. Dr. Fox is here. How's it going,
Oh,
man?
busy, 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 busy. Believe it or not, Dan, there's a lot of sites that need help out there. And it's nice to finally have the opportunity, the trust from these sites to get them what they need. It's heartbreaking at first and then very relieving later once you see that face of relief, like, oh my gosh, I can finally do what I'm actually wanting to do.
Yeah. And, and that's where we're going to get into today. But before we do, saveoursites.com, guys, gals. I'm telling you, I don't want to be answering messages in January saying sorry, we can't sell any more tickets. Like it's over at the end of this year. We're keeping it purposely affordable. You can come yourself even if you don't have an employer. You can bring your staff if you're a site owner. If you're a coordinator and your site owner doesn't want to go, you can go yourself. If you're a CRA, you go. If you're like this Joel White dude, shout out to him. I just connected with him yesterday because he inspired this
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Joel's a cool guy.
Founder
He
at
is.
Market Cap Consulting talks about CRO, biopharma, risk management, financial leadership. You're someone like him, you need to come so you can see that yes, site networks are being acquired for 300 million, but there's new sites struggling to keep the lights on. At the same time, it is possible, guys. Just like in the Western world, it's possible for people to own Bentleys and private jets, and for people to be struggling to keep their lights on in their house. Like
Mm-hmm.
those two things can coexist at the same time. And the Save Our Sites is for the sites that don't have a voice, right? Not the ones that are private equity backed. I mean, they could come too. If they're
Oh, yeah.
smart, they would come too. So
Yeah.
that's all I gotta say, man. We got a lot to talk about today, Fox.
There's a lot. So, Dan, out of curiosity, how many tickets are sold right now?
249. So we
Oh,
need more. Okay.
yep.
Like this is beyond my expectations already. But let's just make it 800, nine
Mm-hmm.
hundred. Let's make it to where University of Arizona says, "Dang, like we don't know about the fire code here and we don't know what we're going to do. Like let's just have them glitch like so that they're robot and they just freeze in what they're doing because they
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to handle this."
Did I tell you, by the way, University of Arizona reached out to me to be a
Yeah.
guest speaker for
Yes.
their clinical research master's program?
Yes.
So,
And then
well,
another U of
yeah.
A guy reached out to me, and I think I CC'd you on the email. He runs an incubator in Southern Arizona
Yep.
and
Yep.
he wants to do life science companies. We're supposed
So,
to have a Zoom with him. I feel like it's coming up soon.
should have been, it might be coming up. Yeah.
I
Well,
hope,
so,
hope we didn't
again,
miss
busy,
it, man.
busy. Everything's,
Yeah.
the patients are coming in. Everyone's happy. Sites are getting saved. Things are doing really well. Let's
Sites
talk
are
about
getting
that.
saved in more ways than one. So
Yep.
a site network I never heard of when I looked into under the hood, meaning on their website. CCT Research, which I've never heard of. It looks like they're a private equity backed site network.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you some anecdotal stories on private equity because they're approaching me as well. And that my site, Yuma Clinical Trials, is small. DSCS
Yeah.
site network is not a real site network. It's like an alliance. I would
Mm-hmm.
say that's a real site network. The definition, because Chris and I got into a whole podcast yesterday on like, well, what's a site network versus a SMO? Well, when one calls themselves a site network but they operate like a SMO, it's
Mm-hmm.
confusing everybody. And in the same deal, IQVIA bought, we're in a separate deal, but like the same quarter, IQVIA bought not only the site network, which operates like a SMO for 300 million, but they bought an actual SMO, which calls themselves an SMO for
Mm-hmm.
30 million. And I
Well,
think that
here's
was benchmark research,
what do
the
they
SMO.
know? What do they know that we don't? Why is there this mad dash to gobble up all of the sites? Why do you think that's happening in private equity? Because I mean, it's across the industry. I know I have sites who they've sold, They, they gave them an offer they couldn't refuse. The money came flowing in. They just took it. They
To
took it and
CROs or to
left.
PE? To
The
PE.
PE. So
I
why
think the
why do we
PEs
have
are trying
PE
to flip.
backed?
I
Yeah.
think this CCT research, I don't know anything about it, guys. This is all speculation. These are private
Mhm.
companies. I suspect CCT research was approached a few years ago when they were like slightly bigger than Yuma Clinical Trials by a PE guys because we're approached, like we're getting approached, Fox, and I'm
Yep.
saying no. What do you want? Like, no, not yet. At least come back like
Mhm.
5 years. They probably got approached. The PE specifically told me we're looking to flip. They didn't say to who,
Mhm.
but they're probably looking to flip to CROs. CROs are desperately looking for growth right now. They thought, this is my hypothesis, right? They thought DCT would be the answer. So they invested all this money in tech. Let's do virtual trials. Remember virtual trials? I'm not going to let people
Yep.
forget this. This was being pushed down our throats in 2018, 2019, just like DCT was like a year ago. Like
Mhm.
virtual trial, patient center, more diversity, all this stuff, same thing you're hearing now was back then. They
Mhm.
realized, hey, it doesn't work. Why? Because these patients don't really trust like a face on Zoom. I had a patient yesterday in a depression study. She's supposed to go on Zoom with a Harvard trained PhD to do a rating assessment, right? So I do a rating assessment, me and the patient in person. Cool. Like we have rapport, everything's cool. Then I say, hey, you're gonna have this person, PhD, they're way more professional than me. They don't wear hoodies. They're gonna do on Zoom, they're gonna do they're gonna do like ask you the same things, all right? Cool. She did it. Probably is gonna get in, but patient texted us and say, you know what? I wish the entire text said that Karen you put me in front of didn't like me, was yawning during our Zoom when I'm a depressed person. This is a patient
Wow.
yawning during our
Wow.
interview. All right. I felt like she thought she was superior to me, was semi rude, and had dogs barking in the background. So
Wow.
I bring that up because of patient trust.
Yeah.
This is why virtual trials failed, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Brad missed that story, but Brad knows what's up, man. So
All right,
tech
Brad,
didn't
just
work.
hands down, have you ever been approached by PE to sell your site?
I feel like I get emails like constantly right now, and I've had a few like people on the side throughout as well. Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, CRPN was just approached by a CRO yesterday.
To do what? Sell?
Yep.
Man, these guys. So I suspect this is where Brad joined. Virtual trials failed. DCT is failing. And the CROs thought tech would be the solution. That's why they invested heavily in tech. Now they're realizing, wait a minute, patients actually trust their clinician. Whoa, wow, what a
Yeah.
concept.
Mind blown, right?
So now they're going after these real sites. They're not going after care access type research on a van. They're going after real clinic. I looked at this CCT research for like 30 minutes yesterday, their website.
So
They're a
CCT
real site.
tried to buy me out like 2020. I've still got emails. I know all their financials. Frankly, they weren't, I mean, they did pretty well, but they were mostly vaccine. And even the guy was really frank with me, and he's like, look, I mean, outside of vaccine, like we don't really know what to do here. Um, we want to expand into Oklahoma. We would just buy you out if you want. And I'm like, no, I don't really want to do that. So I'm actually surprised they sold for that much because it seems way overvalued. I'm
Everything's
surprised.
overvalued
Me,
post COVID,
me and
especially the
Chris,
vaccines.
Chris and I were speculating 300 million. That means it was 30 million EBITDA,
Hmm.
and with
I
like
don't think
let's say
so.
30 sites.
I
With
don't think
30 sites,
so.
no,
You want me to? I can. I mean, I've got
you know
their
how
Yeah.
many sites?
No,
financials.
let's
They
I've
not
got
be
weren't
their
vague.
clear.
financials somewhere.
Oh, let's pull it up. But they weren't clear on their website, but they were multi-therapeutic, and their advisory board was all PE guys.
Hmm. There it
All PE
is.
guys. They had the executive team, all operators, who I've never heard of any of
Yeah.
them.
CJ, the guy I think is their president or CEO, is the guy who I had talked with a lot. Very nice guy, and he seemed knowledgeable. And he actually seemed like he started for the right reasons, and then of course
Yeah.
2 years later he's selling out to fucking IQVIA. So
But the founder, we got respect for the founders, right? Like you can't blame the founders. Like that's their exit.
true.
But the
What look?
concept itself is like I got respect for the concept too. It's free market. CRO can buy whatever they want, and now they're just validating what we've been saying for 5+ years, that real sites in the real communities are the answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
the way I see this.
I'm just confused by, I don't know. CROs awarding them can then basically award themselves their own studies, and then
Yeah.
is that like seem kosher to sponsors or an NFTA? Like that doesn't raise questions at all. And then
You've got the big bad sponsors who have like preferred sites and preferred site networks, site alliances, and it's
well, and
not
then
unheard of.
the other part of it though is like, do other CROs want to award sites to see other CRO owned site networks? Does that get weird? Because then they're
Probably
like
not.
learning each other's secret
But
sauce maybe
they've
here and
already
there.
been doing this on phase one, like 2 decades ago, a decade ago. The CROs have been buying all the phase ones because the idea was they wanted to get the early biotechs to go like end to end, like phase one all the way through phase three with Covance, with IQVIA. And then those became standalone units like Covance phase one, but they do studies with everyone, even if Covance not the CRO. They're just like a regular site.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing it's gonna be a similar business model. But what's worse, man? IRBs owning sites and verifying they're ethical, or CRO. I mean, I still have a bigger issue with the
This could
IRBs.
be interesting. So let's say CROs go out and they buy a bunch of sites. Wouldn't it be funny if fair market value just suddenly just skyrocketed?
I think they would use the sites as a loss leader to just pump up their CRO stuff.
That's what I
Yeah.
would think too, if I
Yeah.
had to guess. Yeah, that's what I wonder. I do wonder what kind of effect, if any, that might have on that sort of fair market value or how sites are valued. Because frankly, the sites aren't. Again, there are more than one multi-billion-dollar publicly traded CRO
Mm-hmm.
Right.
out there, but there aren't any site networks out there that are publicly traded
Multi-billion dollar.
or
Yeah.
presumably aren't balling out all over the place.
You think we're not far from a site network going public?
I mean, at this point, Science 37 is almost that way, aren't they? I mean,
They're like a penny stock, no?
yeah, but they're also, I feel like they're less tech and now they're more, or what do they call themselves? What's the stupid name they call themselves? Damn it. Not OmniSite, but Metasite. And that's what it is.
Meta site.
I mean, they're essentially just kind of chaining together these existing community sites, I think, in some ways. I mean, they might be the closest thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're close, and it's coming. You got so I see Nelson's on. Nelson's always my favorite.
Nelson's asking,
commenter.
what's the name of a site owned by an IRB? Let me look it up, Nelson. I'm not
Yeah.
prepared, man, but I looked up WCG IRB. I kind of hate going to this website. I always feel like icky afterwards.
Well, they're more SMO at this point, right? Like,
yeah,
than a site per se. But I mean, they're essentially operating as an SMO from what I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
They do their own contract negotiations. They pretty much do almost everything.
Nelson, source, trust me, bro. That's the source. I'm not about to look through this thing. Yeah, trust me.
Yeah.
Unless they flipped it because they heard, oh, well, maybe it's not a good idea. Okay, let's flip it. But they had sites. They had site. I don't know if it was network or like Brad said, SMO. And by the way, what's the difference? Because IQVIA called this CCT thing a site network, but everything I looked on their website says SMO.
I have a really hard time determining now the difference between an IRO, an SMO, a site network.
IRO, I forgot about
any
this.
of those. I don't know. I don't even know what to tell people what we do. Even
Well,
so then you've got that thing you call loose network, and that is like almost like an alliance and an affiliation, so to speak.
And then not to confuse people more, but Stid says, Brad, you got some splaining to do, man.
Well, I mean, Anato is really just like a BD marketplace, and we're like the full boots on the ground that we use Anato. We use all those different tools, but we're the boots on the ground infrastructure to help actually make the trials happen at the site. And an auto is essentially a place to go find match trial opportunities with sites potentially. But then somebody's still got to do the work. That's just step 1B,
By the way, I'm getting my first Inato study.
Beautiful.
After many no's, we're getting like the actual sponsors doing the site selection visit.
You think Inato's actually going to come to SOS?
Inato, sponsored by Inato and Creo and Versatrel and Viva. Thank you guys. I think there's a very good chance they will.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been following up like I should, but I will.
Wow. So, I mean, see our own sites. Here's the number one question: do you think it's a good thing?
That's for Brad, maybe. He's more philosophical.
I find it. I don't like the idea of it. I don't know that I can give you a perfectly good explanation as to why. Just because it seems like, wouldn't there be too much like potential conflict there if they're overseeing those sites? Don't they have a little more of a reason to maybe turn their heads if something's not going on that's all on the up and up, because they're getting paid?
Mm-hmm.
They're sort of getting double paid. They're sort of double dipping in the situation.
Yep. Or they could more easily coordinate inefficiencies to increase the RFPs.
Well, yeah. I mean,
well, that's the selling point.
Yeah, we're gonna make it super duper efficient.
Let's go backward. This has happened before, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
big site networks have been bought out by CROs before, right? Like, Nelson, if you're out there, I'm sure you know. I can't think of the name, but like, what happened? Why? I would think that if a CRO bought up a big site network or SMO, like, why wouldn't they award them all to themselves? At which point, like, the market would be all CRO owned sites, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, why didn't that happen in the past? I'll have to remember what they were called. I want to say it was like IMA or IMG or something like that.
Doesn't it also get to where sites are becoming enterprise clients? I've had a couple interviews that said that. Is it possible sites are starting to do some of the work that CROs used to do?
That was what you on your podcast,
mm-hmm.
Fox Raymond from Creo said it's not too long, not going to be too long before sites, if they're going digital, everything. It's not
just direct to EDC.
Yeah, like why not just have a layer? I knew a company. There's still a company. They used to be called the West Coast Clinical Trials. Now they're called something else. They got bought by a hedge fund like a decade ago. They were phase 1 only, or they did a lot of ethnic bridging studies, and they serve as a phase 1 site, but they got small biotechs reaching out to them constantly saying, hey, can you also help us with protocol development with this and that?
Yep.
So they created a CRO arm, and they keep them relatively separate. Like, they do hire a bunch of independent contractors. I was one of them, to come in and monitor occasionally and like kind of be separate from the site. So they made it work. And I mean, I was monitoring for them, and I never felt like I was part of the site at all.
So Nelson, thank you. PMG, I was actually just finding that as you brought it up, because I know the CEO of Javara, I think, also worked for PMG, which was bought out by Icon. And I think they split into Excelicare. But okay, so like, why haven't they? That was several years ago. So that's why I wonder why there hasn't been more saturation in, like, I mean, if you're a CRO and you can buy up 100 sites, like, why do you need to deal with jerks like us, right? Because like, you already own the whole vertical. You own the whole vertical. You're basically becoming like the new Walgreens, PBM, insurer, pharmacist, everything, right? Which we know how well that's turned out for everybody. That's done, real wonders for healthcare.
Vertical integration, yeah. Nelson, one of my students from the CRA Academy got a job as a study coordinator for WCG, and they were consenting patients and everything. So that's my source.
Isn't that could that be like their 3-wire offering where they send the coordinators out to site?
It could have been, but he said no. We work like for WCG. That's the site. So I don't know if they. I mean, this was like 2020, maybe 2019.
We got to get to the bottom of all
Yeah.
this, man.
But it's hard,
Well, I
man.
mean,
It's like
as a community, we've got to come together. It makes sense though if you really look at the timeline. Okay, so COVID happened and it was crazy, and CROs just pulled in the bank. I mean, you've seen the stock prices during COVID; it went nuts, and it's almost like they're reinvesting all that COVID money back into the industry to try to get into the community site industry, the community site market.
yeah. But would you
That's
invest in
potential.
a CRO? I don't think I would. I used to when their core competency was monitoring, like
Used to.
2016, 2017. I invested.
Yeah, I guess I would be more curious to your guys' point. Like, why wouldn't they be buying up the cure bases and the Medibles instead of the site networks, right?
Because that train's left. That bus has popped its
Mhm.
tires, right?
Yeah.
Metaphorically.
As far as PE backing, those PEs got super burned. they're
Mm.
they're trying something different.
You know what though? What you said about maybe this is like they're going to use the sites as a loss leader to drive. Okay, so Joel, let's not like we give a shout out to Joel. I don't know him,
Joel?
by the way. Joel White.
Yeah, I've talked to Joel. I've interviewed him before. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's awesome. A lot of good insight. I mean, he caught a lot of this stuff that I didn't see happening. So
He's this dude.
Mhm.
This dude is like investigative journalism. Like we need to talk to you about SOS. I know you disagree that sites don't need to be saved. I actually think this story tells us why we need SOS because you're
Yeah,
just seeing the headlines, man. You're not seeing the long tail of sites out here can't keep their coordinators. Like they're struggling, man. Fox is saving sites on a daily basis. Chris is the same with DSCS. Like
telling you that the stories are getting worse, and they're really really bad. I mean, we're talking about sites who they're financing their payroll because they're not getting paid when they're owed a ton of money. The money's there; it's just locked up in a frozen CRO pipeline. So they did the work; they're just waiting on the money, and the contracts are wrong. They're in. I mean, they're quote mistakes and errors, but they are very like gross negligence errors here, guys. I'm talking entire quarters of a contract that's just omitted.
mhm.
So, I mean, it's very very sad. So, when I read and I get it, Joel. You're seeing all these people throwing millions of dollars around for these top line sites. That, by the way, since they are top line and they've done very very well, good for them. But they get the cherry picking of the trials. So then what happens is the starter sites that need a chance, they never have a chance. They get the bottom of the barrel, hardest to enroll, hardest to recruit, complex trials to try to build their businesses off of. All while the big multi-million-dollar ones are getting the cake trials.
And we're here to serve them because that's how you start. That's how UMA clinical trial started. Tough studies. Then we
Rescue study. Yeah, you start in
rescue,
rescue sites, right?
rescue.
You can't get
Then
any harder than rescue sites.
you can't. Then we got lucky. One of the rescue studies was not that hard. We looked really good. Shout out Robert Goldman.
Mhm.
Then that same CRO gave us other studies, and now they're getting easier, guys. It's just you have to survive that first 2-3 years as a startup site, and then it's up to you. Like you want to grow it and sell out to PE, you can. You want to grow it and keep it, like Brad's doing, you can do that too. Like we're not here to judge, we're here to help you. But to
Mhm.
say that sites don't need saving is nonsense. Now we're not socialist here to say, oh, like let's give sites a handout. No, we're here to teach sites how to do this stuff so that they can be CCT research one day
Yeah.
without private equity.
Yeah, or at least set them up for success.
Mhm.
I mean, come on, they're literally set up for failure from the very beginning, from that negotiation on.
Look at Natty, 12 years site owner, and we can't seem to find new studies. Never seen prior to COVID. Very
Wow.
concerning. A lot of it's location too, is what I'm learning.
So Natty, my first thing is, have you talked to Inato? If you got 12 years as a site owner, odds are you've got the experience Inato could use to help. So maybe odds are 12 years ago, the way to find trials are nowhere near what you can do now. There's a lot of opportunities out there. That's a plug to Inato, and they don't even sponsor me. But I know I've heard from a lot of sites the experienced ones can do well.
Brad and I agree. I get my first study with Anato, getting my first study. Deborah says is that why AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Pharma stopped doing their monitoring and started using CROs. I don't know. I
There's
think
a
so.
there's a history to that, and that's another podcast. But
And there's
that
some
yeah.
sponsors going the opposite way, like
Yep,
not
Novartis.
using CROs.
Novartis went anti-CRO because they were tired of the quality. There's others. Merck, they very rarely use CROs. They go in house. So,
Lilly is, but they're using like people up front from Lilly in
yeah.
house, like site selection and all that
hmm
stuff, like nurturing until monitoring. Then they let the CRO go
Yep.
free. So there's different. I don't think we can attribute like one thing. There's no smoking gun here. It's just every company has their own strategy, but it's interesting nonetheless. This tells you site owners and coordinators there's value at the small community site level. Don't believe all this crap about the algorithms are gonna save patients and put them in study. No, guys,
Nope.
no.
Nope. I've said this, and I think Lee really liked this. Lee Eifler, you can never take the clinical out of clinical research. You have to keep the humanity in there, okay? And people are going to try. They're going to try to turn this into this robotic system. Healthcare tried it too. You will never take the humanity out of what we're trying to do, because the whole point is we're trying to preserve humanity.
Well, and this is where I'm like, how, again, like classic, I feel like clinical trials is kind of late to the party, but like, are telehealth rates like starting to decline? From what I've been speaking with different physicians and nurses in these clinics, and it's becoming where
Brad,
they're
the
like, oh well,
patients don't like it,
we
man.
only have a couple a week, maybe we have a couple telehealth visits, but yeah, people who want to come in and see the doctor, and
The
I'm like,
patients don't like it, man. The when you were getting on, I was telling Fox a story. We have a depression study. I don't want to say more without getting in trouble. I rate the patients like one on one, like we build a rapport. I just meet the patient myself too. I don't have an advantage. I'm not the most never been accused of being the most professional guy, right? Like, but I'm in there. I'm nice. I know how to deal with patients, especially psych. Boom, everything's fine. Hey, we're scheduling you with this remote psych visit. These are Harvard trained PhD. Be careful. They're gonna ask you all this. Just go do it. Hopefully you get in. I think you qualify. She does it. She texts me, that Karen, I can't believe you put me in front of that Karen. She was yawning when I was talking about my depression. And I felt like she felt like she was superior to me somehow and was totally disengaged. Plus, she had dogs barking in the background. I know it's anecdotal, but that's happening. Like, patients prefer real rapport, not a Zoom,
You
you know?
No, and you'll see this in healthcare, you'll see this in research. Patients do not want to be sheep. They don't want to be this RVU number that drives up metrics. When a patient goes into a doctor's office, just keep in mind the reason why they're going into that doctor's office is because they need help. They want someone to pay attention to them. That's why they're getting care. So
Yep.
trying to go virtual, trying to make all this stuff efficient to try to save sponsors money at the expense of a site or at the expense of a patient burden, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And it's the intangibles, like Brad always says, scale the unscalable. Another patient yesterday, she's not going to qualify. I I told her, hey, we're going to put you in front of the people, but I don't think you qualify because of this. We already have backup options for her. Like, hey, we don't have a study for you, but here's a community resource here. I know this person and this person because I do outreach. So I'm going to put you in touch with them and you can get help. And then when we have another study, you come do a study with us. Who's doing that once the sites get big and like leverage to the gills or much less like everything on computers? It's not getting done. That
So
stuff's not getting done.
a teaser, but I know for a fact that One in Health does that because I interviewed Steve and we talked about that.
Well, health is special, man. I
Oh
need to
man.
talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brad and
So
I need podcast sponsors.
yeah. Well, I mean, One in Health is a proud sponsor of us.
That's right. SOS.
Fox.
Wait, are we getting
Frozen
pixelated
it.
Fox again? Fox. No, we get frozen Fox. Fox is the man of many nicknames. Now it's Frozen Fox. One in Health, yeah. Shout out to One in Health sponsoring SOS. They're on our website right now. I'm looking at saveoursites.com right now. I see. Let's see how many tickets, guys. You got to go. You have to go. Don't ask me in January why we're not selling. I'm telling you right now. It's only till the end of the year. All right, we're at 249 tickets sold. Frozen Fox is gonna come back. He's gonna get de-thawed, and he's gonna be regular Fox. All right, let's go through some of these comments, Brad. What do you think? You got anything to add? Like, this is all interesting stuff to me.
No. I mean, it is. I think it's all really fascinating to see all the movement, and obviously you've seen these tech companies kind of pull out of the clinical operations and sort of site management side, while you've got the CROs buying into the site management side, which I don't know how telling that is. The whole kind of cure-based debacle, if you will, was really interesting to me. I'd love to get somebody on from Curebase. I feel like we both reached out to try to get some information about that. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to run a site. It's hard to run sites, man.
You know what's interesting though, Brad? Like Creo's here, Raymond believes in this. Sites currently, there's like only 20% of sites use eSource on their own, like when it's not forced down their throats. Once we get that number to 80 or more, sites can actually be the tech. Like there was a moment in time where this tech could pop off because sponsors could like do the top down, but then it seems like it's not working. But when the sites voluntarily use it to improve their businesses, I think there's something there, man. And I think the CROs realize this and are trying to get ahead of the curve. Because like I told you, that phase 1 site that started doing monitoring services, and this was before e-tech, like anything. They did it old school, man. The guy was showing me, the pharmacist, they do a manual IWRS. Like they didn't have the tech.
Right.
It's going to become easier for sites to have a monitoring aspect and turn into a CRO. I'm sure, Brad, if you got a good study right now and a sponsor said, hey, we're only giving you this 8-figure study if you can monitor it somehow, you're finding monitors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You'd figure it out. And it'd still probably be at a way cheaper cost than dealing with the CRO. I mean,
wow. Shots fired.
I mean, from what you know better than me, but I feel like the more I learn and the more I talk to people, the more I'm shocked by just how egregious, some of this stuff is, especially pricing from the CRO side. Yeah, but that's why IQVIA is CEO made like $30 million last year. Like that's not an exaggeration. Like total compensation package, 30 million. It's
and IQVIA is best of breed. Honestly, if I had gun to my head, you can only invest one CRO. It's IQVIA. Like no question.
I'll admittedly, IQVIA does have the best pack score. So
man, Fox come back in like didn't miss a beat.
Just didn't miss it.
I will tell you, literally, lightning just struck and the entire house lost power. That's a sign right there. People don't want us to talk about
a good one or
this.
a bad one?
I don't know yet. But
it's private equity. They can manipulate the weather, and they got your house, man.
Mm-hmm. Got all the big space satellites targeting my house right now, hitting me with laser beams.
Okay, this topic is very nice, and achieving randomization goal is the most important. So I think owning a site network helps a lot. Yeah, I agree.
100%. And there's many breed of site networks. You've got the loose networks. You've got the networks that are franchises. You've got the ones that tell you exactly what to do. You've got the ones that just want to share resources and opportunities. So it's that goes back to what exactly is a network. Well, what is not a network is the question. I mean, we're a network right now. SOS is a network. Yeah,
it's true.
So,
what are your thoughts on IRB buying Pharmaseek, a brokerage company? You guys already know, but Brad and Fox.
Yeah, Pharmaseek I thought was kind of garbage. I don't want to speak. Well, let me not speak too strong.
Tell us how you really feel, man.
I know. Well, so the example I give is this: like, I was working with a site that's like down the street, and this was back before I had access to a lot of therapeutic areas. So I would get trial opportunities, and I would like basically kind of broker them to the quote unquote competing site. So I got a trial, and I was like, hey, great. Check out this trial I got. Here's the budget. And they're like, oh, we already were awarded this trial through Pharmaseek. I was like, okay, well, I have a budget. And they're like, okay, well, we have a budget too. And I'm like, well, let's look. And Pharmaseek's budget was like I'm not joking. It was like half of what the offered budget
Yeah.
was. And I'm like, oh, well,
Yeah.
you're getting screwed. And
It was
pharmacy is
parasitic. It was
pocketing
very parasitic.
a whole bunch of money.
As
So, I don't like
there,
that.
it
I
shows
get
you
it.
where the allegiances lie.
Well, and look, it's fine. They deserve, something for the value they bring for especially sites who might be really hungry for studies and need it. But then there's a line between providing a value at a fair price versus just screwing over a site because they don't have any other options,
Yeah. And there's a very special, maybe a purist place in my heart that says, I mean, I get it. Commercial IRBs are businesses, but they shouldn't really leave that rail. They should be focusing on patient quality and patient safety and stopping at that. If they wanted to do any other part of the business, they should just start another business. And it also tells me they must be making hand over fist if they can do these kind of acquisitions.
Oh yeah.
So, which means that how many of you have received a rubber stamp IRB approval that should never have been approved?
Well, lately I haven't, but back in the day it happened.
Yeah. I mean, it still happens. It's give us $1,000, you can get this approval or exemption, extension, whatever. So where's the quality in it? And I'm really, so I really am concerned with the interest in money with a lot of the ethical organizations, or they're supposed to be ethical in the industry.
Definitely conflict of interest. I mean, it's clear this industry is known for policing, especially IRBs. You can't have that kind of font on your social media post, right? But then that thumb is pointing back to them, I guess. No, the other fingers are pointing back. Like you're owning 3 sites. You own a broker. I'm gonna flip you off. Broker, a site network, and I don't know, some thingy, right? So, but we can own that, but you can't use this font because it's a depression study, and this makes it look happy. And you come on, guys, this is stupid.
So you guys know there was a time when WCG was going to go public.
I would have bought it. I would have bought.
I'm curious. I don't know what happened, and maybe I bet somebody like our pal Nelson might know more. But
Nelson,
for some reason, like at the last minute, they backed off and decided not to go public or IPO.
Well, maybe they had to disclose certain things that they didn't want to disclose.
Could be. I mean, I have a feeling that's why Science 37, because they went public through SPAC, which is a little bit, I think, less strenuous in what they have to disclose, which is why their value is like, dropped 98% or something from their all-time high.
I wonder if like philosophically, because I know when we wrote this book, I had to research like way more than I wanted to about like IRBs. And the Office of Human Research Protection has to oversee like the IRBs, and that's like an arm of the FDA and NIH. And there's something where once you go public, it's implied that your first interest is the shareholders, right? And I think the IRB, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but their first interest should always be the patients. So if they were to do that, theoretically, their interest.
Yeah. What are the ethics of going public as an IRB when you have to prioritize shareholders over patient safety?
That's my guess, but I'm not an attorney. That's Nelson.
I mean, yeah, that's
all those pharma companies. I mean, you could argue the same thing. Like, they should give a shit. We should give more of a shit about patients, and instead they care about making money, which again, it's fine.
They can't.
Money drives them.
Money drives protection is what drives them. Like, they're all for the patents and stems to like shareholders and ultimately to patients, but like their primary duty is not really to patients. But what the IRBs are, they have no other role. They shouldn't be brokers. They shouldn't be site owners. Okay, but from a purist,
they have CTMS systems now too, which is going to give them access to a lot of patient data, I would think.
They got everything. WCG has a subsidiary recruitment firm called 3Wire. Let's go to some of these. Dewana says, do you think it would be advantageous to mix internal, external sites to ensure diversification?
Yes. Care access.
But yeah, don't award 90% of your trial to one site
of your
I mean, it's advantageous to who? Would it be advantageous to the CRO? I mean, maybe not, because if they can keep it within their network, they can control it. they get all the money.
It's in
I
it's in
mean,
the
why?
sponsor's best interest to have a diversified mix of sites, not only for diversity but also for uh, safety, security. I
Yeah,
mean, you
not having all
normalize
your
your
eggs in
site
one
mix, you're
basket.
going to have a better opportunity to have a better patient population.
These comments are legit. Yeah, see, Natty, I think the location is really does matter.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida is. Good morning, Mortimer. You look really professional in your pit photo,
Dude,
man.
Nice, Mortimer.
Mortimer Rockwell Wolf Kelly is a badass name, also, by
Yeah.
the
The
way.
law offices of Mortimer Rockwell Wolf Kelly can help you out.
I
You
love
look
it.
like a lawyer, man. Florida's like one of the most saturated places.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the best sites are there too. I
They
wish
said there's
everyone.
more clinical research sites in Miami than Walgreens.
Hey, that's a small win for research sites.
Mm-hmm.
Giant leap for SOS. I wish everyone would just realize that at some point we all have been patients. Yes,
Yes.
exactly, Rosemary. But there's grifters in between like this, like, and they have
Mm-hmm.
big hands. Right? They're grifting. All right, they don't
Mm-hmm.
care what's best. Like at the end of the day, I was telling my coordinators yesterday. There's not a week go by. I stopped group texting you guys because you guys would be bored. You're dealing with the same thing. There's not a week go by I'm not fighting with some study director about getting some patient in the study because they default
Yep.
to no, no,
Yep.
no,
Yep.
everything no. Well, so who's the patient advocate? Who's left?
The
You know,
site.
that's it. That's all
It's
you
the
have.
site. The first and last line of defense for our patients is the site.
Yeah, and I worry that as things consolidate, that's gonna get worse, not better. I think there's always room, long tail, gonna be room there.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, from my experience, so many patients definitely prefer face-to-face visits. Depends on the specialty as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's very dependent.
And this is where I thought that it was interesting that WCG, Avoca, or whatever they're called, state of the industry. And so it kind of showed two things, like, and you see this, and I wondered about this when I see results from these sorts of surveys, is it's like patients want, this, that, and the other. Well, these are patients who've never been in a clinical trial. They don't even know what they don't know. And then at least you see the patients who are in trials overwhelmingly have had a great experience and they appreciate the ability to be in front of a doctor. So I was actually kind of interested in, I was happy to see it sort of broken down and stratified a little bit differently than I usually see them, because people love to throw up, like they said here, being able to do things remotely would make it more attractive. And I'm like, well, they've never been in a trial, so they
Yeah,
don't
who
know
have you
what that
asked? Yeah.
means.
Yeah,
They,
yeah.
yeah. Do you want me to go hand them a shitty ERT e-diary? You think they're going to be happy with that? They're not. It sucks.
Man, I know. We had a patient last week. Everything stories. The patient first trial ever. I didn't step in the room yet. I do the rating skills. Coordinator tells me, "Hey, FYI, she's like really nervous, like really, really nervous." So I will go out of my way, like just 15 minutes, just chit chatting. Nothing to do with
Yep.
research. Just, hey, this is
Yeah.
what it is. I give her a story on the IP. This is the IP. This is the history of it. Then she got relaxed, right? But then when she leaves us, they make her do this remote thing with some person from Harvard that could give a crap, give a damn about her. So I think Eric, they prefer once they're comfortable, they do prefer the option. But like for
Mm-hmm.
important things, like especially like primary endpoints, and like you're basically seeing, okay, is this person gonna get in the study or not?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I think that needs to be done like in person. Those
Well,
kind of
to your point, like I'm not saying we shouldn't have options. We absolutely should. There's no question about it. Um, I had a nice point to make and then I completely lost it. But I found, and I don't know if you guys, but like the more people you involve in your trial, the more chaos ensues, the more miscommunication happens.
All variables.
And
Every variable.
the further you get away from like the part of the team that you sort of have your arms around, the less leverage and control you have. So if I send a patient even upstairs because they need optometry, they do not give a shit about my research patient. They're another patient. They'll reschedule them, they'll bump them. And then that reflects poorly on the clinical trial experience for the patient. It's not our fault, but this is where I think a lot of sites want to have, at least I do, I want to have as much control as possible. I don't want to send them to be like, go see some random lab in your hometown. Not that we shouldn't make it easier for them, but to go back to the idea of like, sites are still going to have to manage that. You can't just ship them off to some other doctor or some other lab or whatever the case may be and be like, good luck, because
Yeah,
it's going
and
to.
whose neck is out? Your neck is on the line.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the PIs ultimately, but
Yeah.
to another degree, us, because we end up having to really deal with it. I mean, the PI gets yelled at, and obviously they're
then they'll let you.
is on the line, but
the PI gets yelled at, he'll come yelling at me, not the
Yeah.
coordinator.
we'll
He'll
get
come
it
to
from
me.
both. Yeah, we'll get it from both sides.
Yeah, and this is where sites, again, scaled unscalable. We have the same thing, Brad. Our upstairs is across the street with an X-ray facility. They're notoriously like bad customer service. It's the only one way. There's no other option. I go bribe all the front desk staff, hey, and the techs. Here's a Starbucks gift card, like regularly. It took like 3-4 months of this till they recognize, oh, come on in, like VIP treatment, because those little Starbucks gift card, But who's gonna do that? You can't scale that. Like how that doesn't scale.
Yep. Well, there's your relationship. You're building those relationships.
Yeah.
I love this last comment from LinkedIn user, and I agree with it completely.
LinkedIn user.
Yep.
Who are you? Show yourself.
Well, on the sponsor
Mark. It's Mark Melton.
Mark, hey Mark, how's it going? I agree. Why are we building like castles on sand? We're trying to make all this new stuff on a shaky foundation as it is, and it's just not going to go anywhere. If you want to have solid, what they call DCT, you better have a solid foundation. And I talked about that with finances as well, but it's the same thing with your data.
I think we just need to stop saying DCT. I know that the people who do it love it, but really, I think what it is, and I don't even know who said this the other day, but it's really better technology integration, I think, and digitizing some of these archaic processes. Like, start there. We don't have to call it decentralization. I know decentralization was a really cool word 5 years ago. That everything's decentralized, but it's really not. If anything, it's more centralized.
See, I like healthcare integration because it doesn't omit anything. You're integrating. You're not. So D is like against something is going against a norm. Where when you talk about integration, it's more we're going to work together, streamline things, make things so that it's efficient and we can do it properly. It's more of like a collaborative.
I had this talk with Chris yesterday around semantics and between site network and SMOs, and I told him it doesn't matter, and he said words do matter. I know he is older than me. Shameless jab at Chris. So maybe that's something I don't. I don't think this stuff matters. DCT. You think a patient cares like what it's called? No. But does it matter? Do the words matter? You think?
I think there's too many negative things associated with that name now, especially with all of the failures that are associated with it now. They're attached to it. You're going to have to rebrand it to be a little more collaborative.
So they matter maybe for industry.
It'll matter for the industry. It's not going to matter for the patients. They're going to be like, okay, that sounds good. But if you want the cooperation of the industry. Oh, really?
Good call, Keith.
IQVIA just updated drug dev Spark. Shout out to Melissa Easy. She was the creator of this thing. Flipped it. Respect. Make sure y'all check your PI profile.
So yeah, I've actually been getting some emails from Drug Dev Portal lately, so I usually ignore a lot of it. So maybe I need to go check it out.
Remember when back in around this time, actually, like 2012, IQVIA also bought a patient. I think it was called like Patient Guard or iGuard. It was this website where if you're a patient, had nothing to do with the research. You could enter what meds you're taking, and it's like a double check to see if like any safety issues, interactions. So they were trying to accumulate a database, which never took off, but they acquired this tech back then too. So IQVIA has been making acquisitions since the last time they got public, and so this is nothing. It's nothing new for them, but it is the fact that it's a site and like a community site, not this tech-driven site, but like community site,
Yeah.
it is a bit reassuring for us site owners that, hey, you know what, like we're on the right track with what we're building.
Yeah. So anyone out there is this, I mean, just so you know, across the industry, there is this mad grab by private equity to take your site. They're buying it out. They're paying you top dollar. I'm telling you, there's a reason for it. There's an exit strategy, and we're not sure what it is yet.
So here's the end all be all questions. No matter who owns whatever, you can own it by like a circus can own your site. All right. At the end of the day, FDA is coming to the PI and saying, hey, what are you doing here?
Yep.
Yeah. Who's the ringmaster? You're the ringmaster of this circus. So that's
I
right.
mean, why haven't we just pool our sites and sell out to IQVIA, and we can do these podcasts from a yacht? I mean,
Sounds good.
What are we doing?
I want a cyber yacht. How's that?
I'd be down. I get seasick though. I gotta take some Zofran and some Dramamine.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Okay, more okay, guys. Well, by the way, like, subscribe, comment, share, and look, www.saveoursites.com.
Out of curiosity, Dan,
more
did we
people.
get ticket number 250 during this event?
Let me see.
We had 249. Did anyone buy a ticket for SOS?
No.
No.
All
right. Who wants to be number 250? That's the question.
Number 250 gets an autograph photo of Chris Auber. Always get to know your patients. I feel like most patients appreciate a smaller one-to-one personal. Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. But the option is there, right? Like the option's good. From our experiences, we have studies where they're like they allow option. The remote stuff is good once the patient's in autopilot, trusts you, knows the study, knows they want to stay in. That's where it's good. But in the beginning where it's like critical, like primary endpoint, and you wanna this is a depressed person, you're gonna make them more anxious by your demeanor because you're trained in Harvard. They haven't trained you in manners, apparently, right? Like I think that's counterproductive. But the DCT thing, no, we want to throw money at this. This is like this has to be on the pitch deck for investors.
So anyone out there already knows the average clinical trial is a burst trial. You're going to have that first month being hardcore. Patient may have to come in every week sometimes. And then you're going to get into maintenance mode where they might come in like once a month, once a quarter, depending on how things go. So that first month is absolutely critical to treat that patient correctly, to make the other 2 years, 3 years, 5 years perfect. So and I don't see like all these, DCT is the future research. Well, maybe for robots, but not for humans.
In silico studies. Sitting on the sponsor and CRO side, they both already have issue with data from traditional data sources. Yeah, look at what the ePros, all right? Sites are they don't have time to check the ePro responses every day. Like, so there's a lot of deviations being uncovered. And like, so that's not ready for prime time. We have to change the way we think of ourselves as sites too with all this tech.
Yeah.
DCT is horrible term.
Yes, Iggy.
All right, Iggy, tell us how you feel, man. Words matter once FDA starts opining about their definition. What is with this ICF thing? What is that? Like,
well, if the ICF is one thing, that's a guidance, but this, FDA calls it a DCT guidance. And I really wonder how many actual sites are sitting on that advisory board for FDA.
You know who's on that board.
I know who's on it.
Sean Kulkarni's on that board. He'll tell you how it works. This FDA guidance on the ICF yesterday, is it important? Like,
yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I saw a bunch of posts about it, but nobody was really saying anything.
And what's really, I don't know if you saw, Dan, but people were quoting your book after reading the ICF. You were calling it before FDA made the guidance.
Hey, we called it. I don't even know what FDA guidance says, but it's in here, I guess.
Yeah.
Man,
so if you're in the industry, if you care for your patients, it's common sense.
It's common sense. Fox. That's the part that doesn't scale. Common sense. Because systems, sometimes common sense, when you make a system, and you leverage, common sense gets lost. In the religion becomes follow the system instead of treat the
Follow your
patient
gut.
right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem with like scaling the unscalable. But apparently you can get close to it and get bought out. Like IQVIA wouldn't have bought them if they didn't have systems as well. So you got to do both as sites. Do you feel pharma resist innovation on the process side of research in Denver because they have so much risk on the product side of what they do? Yeah.
Probably
Yep.
so.
Oh yeah. How many billions of dollars are at stake if you make a risk? That's
One out
why
of
it's so hard
10.
to change things.
1 out of 10 IPs get approval. 1 out of 10. So 9, you already know, as attached as you are to that science, imagine these scientists dedicating like 15, 20 years of their lives. Okay, and that doesn't work. But then like maybe decades later, it's repurposed for something else and it works. Like,
Yeah, but how much would it kill you to work on that as a scientist and then watch sites totally screw it up, or watch a new process for sites that made it killed it, that otherwise it may have worked great, but instead sites
I lived it, Brad.
did
I
it
lived
wrong.
it.
And
Pharma is really good at failing fast. They made a science out of it, literally. But what they're not really good at is innovating it to prevent failing fast.
SOS, save our scientists. This got to be next. I think so. These guys need to be awarded. Like these guys are heroes. We talk about patients being heroes. The scientists behind all this stuff, they're the heroes.
Shout out to Xena. Xena Seraph was one of them.
Oh yeah. 483. All could get 483, including CRO. Well, that would be great for a publicly traded company, as well as software companies. A lot of VCs there everywhere. I know we are all very leery of PE, but isn't it superior to a large CRO, at least from perspective of remaining independence?
We'll see. That's to be said, Van. We'll see how that goes. I have a few theories behind that.
I mean, they'll hire the consultants from these large CROs, but those consultants are less handcuffed.
I wonder if Keith's getting married.
Keith, I do, man. You do. He's bought a ticket. Let me see. If that was what I do, you get Chris Sauber autograph. Let's see. Refresh. No. Man, that I do means something else. Chris or Keith, you had me like excited, man. Don't go to the dark side.
Yeah.
Nah, not yet, man. Caitlin, truer words never been spoken. I thank you to whoever said it. I like the guidance. Okay, thank you guys. That's it. We got it. We went through all the comments. You guys have closing thoughts?
I did have one request. Anyone talking? I am collaborating. I already got my IRB exemption for a survey on coordinators to understand the coordinators' lives and how we can better serve you. It's going straight through university. If you'd like to take that survey, it could really help. Here's your voice.
That survey, I'm gonna have my coordinators do it. Keith, underneath, man, look, do us a solid. SaveOurSites.com. Even if you don't buy, just go look and then go share. But buy, you're gonna go there, man. Let me click your profile and see. Let me tell you right now, live, if you should be there. All right. What's his last name?
Keith Rebler.
Hold on. Let me switch tabs.
I mean, his last name already sounds like Rebel. I like him.
Rebler. I'm gonna tell you, Keith, honest opinion. If I were you, if I would go. Let me look. Director of Business Development. I don't need to see more. Yes. Yep. With accurate clinical research. Yes. Keith, it's a no-brainer, man. Let's connect right now. I sent you a connection request. Let's get you there, man, and it's cheap enough to bring everyone there. Right? Biz Dev is gonna be one of the 4 pillars of what we discussed. Apparently, right? Fox and Brad know more about that than I do.
So given our list of sponsors, including some that I'm not allowed to announce yet, you may see sponsors at this conference you've never seen at another research conference.
So.
Shout out One in Health too.
Yeah, sponsors that are actually there want to help sites. And
so just so you know, when I interview every sponsor, and the very first question I say is, "How do you plan to save our sites?" And if they say something like, "Oh, they don't need to be saved," or "I just want a bunch of biz," I say, "Thank you very much. Maybe this isn't the right one for you." So it's not like we're just grabbing a bunch of money. We're very selective on who we allow to come in to sponsor SOS.
Yeah. Even if you don't need to be saved, you need to come because you can save others. Hey, look, make your own site network. Go acquire some sites. I mean, this is business at the end of the day, too.
Yeah, and that's what, again, I've seen people get hung up on the idea of like, oh, you don't need to be saved. It sounds like, you're all,
Sounds like you're
but it's
weak.
more,
Maybe the
well, it's
weak
more
shouldn't
about, I think
survive.
it's more about like, it's more about like community, right? And like everybody helping each other learn, right? Like we do this, we've done this for a long time. There's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things I could do better to make my site better, so we serve patients better, so we do better jobs for the sponsors we work with. It's about continually improving. And I don't think there's actually been a very useful and practical forum for sites to really cut through the shit and talk about what works and what's best for them. So that's what it is. It's not that we're dying and we need saved. It's how can we help support each other, right? And bolster each other. I mean, I think that's what it's about.
How many topics do you think were at recent conferences that were not allowed by the sponsors of that conference? We don't want you to make us look bad, so you can't talk about that. Do you think that ever happens at the conferences?
I'm sure it does. I was sick of sitting through basically lectures that are just thinly veiled marketing and, weren't really useful. Like you're just trying to sell your thing, man. I don't give a shit about
Some
that.
of these biggest conferences are owned by these IRBs we've been dunking on. Like it's just so easy to dunk on them. They own Magi, right? Like I don't know what other ones they own. I'm not in the loop, but I know they own Magi. So what do you think they're gonna have that allow who to speak and who not to speak? We're not getting up there. I'll tell you that. Well, I don't know about you. Maybe you guys. Maybe Fox. Fox, you're
Fox.
like the ambassador, man.
Yeah,
You got
Fox is
diplomatic
the
immunity.
yeah.
Actually,
Fox has,
I didn't get invites this year, and that's I don't know if that's a coincidence or not to speak.
But you're
So
speaking
maybe.
at plenty other places, so you're good. Man.
Oh yeah,
Oh, no.
I'm taking the circuit. I know, Brad, you were at Magi once, right?
Yeah, I went to Magi last year. Yeah.
The first year it was owned by the other
I think
company.
so. I think it was. It was good. It was a good conference. I mean, but again, there was still a lot of sessions I went to that I was like, why?
Yeah,
See,
the
I'm
part
already
is to
liking
meet
Keith.
people.
Keith, yeah, you need to come to SOS, buddy.
Keith,
Let's have
you
a
have
talk.
14 sites and you're not a SOS, man. You need to bring every coordinator, somebody from every 14 site.
Yeah.
Right. With more coming, Keith, you're gonna be the next CCT research.
So
hey, you don't have $150, man.
Seriously, and when you want to talk about CRPN, let me know because that's nuts, man. That's cool.
Went to Magi in Philly. It was okay. Yeah, we're trying to go for like. See, the thing with these conferences like Magi, you can go just like if you know what city it's in, you can just go there and hang out and not go to anything and like still get value because you're meeting everyone. We're trying to make it to where the stuff's good, actually good, like the content's actually good.
I know we're over, but if it's okay, let's answer Jeff's question, then we'll wrap it up.
Jeff.
So
you have a remote option.
Yep. So a couple things here, Jeff. One is when we want to, not this year. We didn't know
we'll
how
have
big
a DCT model soon.
Yeah, DCT conferences. So it costs a lot of money to do remote option. It's like you have to fund 2 conferences. So that's number one. And number 2 is the 1-day thing. I agree completely. I didn't know how big it would be. I think that already next year, the following year, it's going to be 2-day. So to answer your question, we want remote, but we have to fund it and we have to kind of raise the money for it. And 2 is eventually it's going to come into a longer conference to help, hopefully, 1, justify the trip and make sure that it's not going to be to Arizona. It's going to maybe be closer to you.
Yeah.
We're just babies. We're babies at the conference game. You know, some of these people are professional conference throwers and we are not that. Yeah. So we got to walk before we run here.
We're going for the single, right? 1-day conference. That's why we didn't make it 2-day. There'll be people hanging out the day before and the day after. I know I am, but it's like not official, right? We're not selling that. And then maybe the next one, did we agree where it's going to be or did we announce it or not yet? The next one?
I think we'll have to talk about that. I don't know where it is yet.
Is there gonna be some thunder action going on?
We'll see.
Might
We'll
be.
see.
Never know. I can say so. I have the full might of the entire Springfield, Illinois Chamber of Commerce behind me. They want this conference in Springfield, and
Well,
they have offered to go to every single conference to promote it. So I can tell you that if it does come to Illinois, I've got a really good community backing.
There you go.
Maybe we rock paper scissors for it. And,
Yeah, we'll go.
take that.
So
I'll
just
take
so you
the
know,
fall
it's no
idea.
secret. Obviously, we're doing the SOS location based off of our locations. So it's either going to be Arizona, Oklahoma, or Illinois
For the first 3, but
for
then
the first 3, and then we'll talk.
then we get fancy. And
Hawaii
yeah.
and Puerto Rico.
Oh, and then the price will have to go up, and we totally
We're gonna do it on top of the Aztec pyramid in Mexico. The one
Yeah,
of
there
them
you
for
go.
LICR.
Wait, hey, can we do a space station?
That'll be like year
Oh,
10,
shit.
maybe.
Yeah,
Call up Elon.
Yeah. Viva sponsors Rocket.
the Viva rocket.
All right. Well,
So,
we're done. Thank you guys for coming on. This was good. I really appreciate it. And saveoursites.com, guys.
all right.
Let's do it.
Have a good
Bye,
week.
bye, bye.
Bye, everyone.